right, now we're going to talk about grandma making the quilts and trying to deduct it. A few years ago, you could deduct expenses with hobby income. So we're assuming grandma's just doing this for a hobby and not really in it for a profit motive. And up to a few years ago, you could deduct your expenses that you incur in doing your hobby to the extent of your hobby income. So if grandma made $300 making a quilt, but she bought $400 worth of materials, you used to be able to deduct it up to the limit of your revenue. So grandma would be able to deduct $300 of her expenses, which would basically zero out her hobby income. With the TCJA, they did away with that rule, and now you're only allowed to deduct your cost of goods sold. So if you buy something that you intend to resell, maybe you buy an old computer off of Facebook and fix it up and make it a better computer, but you only do this once in a while just for fun, you could only deduct the cost of what you paid to get the computer as a hobby expense. This is because they did away with what we call a miscellaneous itemized deduction subject to a 2% limitation or AGI. That sounds very complicated. Ignore what I just said and just know they did away with that deduction. And so now you report your hobby income on your other income line. I believe it's line 8 or something along those lines. Let's take a look at that. All right, so when we're talking about hobby income, line 8, I said, I'm an idiot, line 21. You report your hobby income on line 21, other income. And only cost of goods sold can be deducted like we just talked about. So now the question is it a hobby or is it a trade or business? And so there's several factors we have to look into on trying to determine whether or not is it a hobby or a trade or business. Are you carrying it on as a business? Do you put a lot of time and effort in it? Do you depend on the money you make from that as the way to make a living? Are losses beyond your control? Are you trying to become profitable? How smart are you? Are you an expert in this field, or are you just kind of piddling around in it? Have you made profits in previous years, and do you expect to make a profit in a future year? So these are some of the questions we talk about. And so when clients come into me and say, yeah, I do photography on the side, and that's exactly what I do. I took this picture right here for a friend of mine. So I do photography on the side, and I get paid a few dollars, not a lot of money, and I spent a lot of money buying cameras and equipment so that I could do it. And so here I'd have to look at this. If I want to determine, can I write off my camera that I bought? It's an expensive camera, and I only make, 50 bucks a year maybe. Well, let's run through the test. Am I carrying it on as a business? No, not really. I don't advertise. I don't have a Facebook page. Only people I do photography for is my friends. So I'm not really carrying it on as a business. Do I put a lot of time and effort into it? Nope, not at all. I just do it when I have time and I want to. Am I dependent on the income? Well, like I said, I only make $50 a year. So quite clearly, I don't depend on that income. Losses beyond my control. I'm not trying to become profitable. I got some good knowledge, but I'm nowhere near an expert. Have I made profits in previous years? Oh, heck no, I have not made profits in previous years. So clearly my job, my hobby as a photographer would be a hobby. I would have to report the $50 online, 21 as other income, and I could not deduct anything else. I really don't have a cost of goods sold, and so I wouldn't be able to deduct any of my expenses related to my hobby of photography. So now, a couple of things you want to look into. The reason that we have this profits in previous years is the IRS says if you can show that you've made a profit in 3 of 5 years from doing this hobby, then we're going to assume you're in it for a profit motive. Of course, that's not how most hobbies work. Most people spend a lot more money on their hobby than what they make, selling whatever little things they have to sell. And so they generally have losses year after year after year. But the IRS says, if you make a profit and you document that profit, then absolutely, we're going to call this a business motive. So if you've made a profit 3 of the last 5 years for most businesses, 2 of the last 7 years in businesses involving racehorses, then we're going to call it a profit venture. And then we would put it on a Schedule C. So if I could show in my photography business, I've made a profit for 3 of the last 5 years, now I'm going to put it on Schedule C. Now I'm going to write off my cameras, my backdrops, my flashes, all that good stuff, and generate a loss. So that's one of the things we look at trying to determine if it's a hobby or a for-profit business. Okay, so that was a quick look at hobby income. You know, for most people, they're just out of luck on their hobbies. They've got to report the income. They don't get to write off any of their expenses. People who do race cars, oh, those are the worst. Those guys, they spend thousands and thousands of dollars on these race cars, and they win like $500 on a Friday night, and they just want to deduct everything. But they haven't made a profit in forever, if ever. And so we have to go through the hobby rules with them to find out if they can deduct their expenses or not. And as a general rule, the answer is no. Coming up next, we're going to talk about some more confusing things, especially the QBI, that new deduction that's only been around a couple of years. But we'll take it slow and see what we can do.